We're live.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday Wake Up with Women's Council Greater Snohomish. I'm Tammy McKee, and welcome.
Hi, Tammy, our president. I'm Lisa Steffen, the treasurer, and I am beyond excited to have Elise Enriquez here with us today, who is a productivity coach who I've known for years and have worked with for years, and I'm so excited you're here. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here with you two live and in person.
I know.
It's such a cool studio. This place is awesome.
Yeah, I know it was.
Yeah.
It was great to give you a hug today, too.
I know. It was. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
So
To see entire faces. It's good to see
know,
everybody's entire
right?
face. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to be like within distance and not
Yes.
have a screen in front of us, right?
Yeah.
I know, it's so nice. So tell us a little bit about yourself and
Okay.
how you got into coaching and
Goodness.
what I know.
Like my whole life story?
Yeah.
Your journey.
Okay. All right.
I
So
was born, I didn't know.
I know. Yakima, Washington. Really, though.
Yeah.
No, so I am a productivity coach and consultant, and I specialize in creating breakthroughs for people in their life and in their business. And I say life first because everything impacts everything, and I feel like life is the most important part of things, and then we want our business to support that. So I always say life and business. So that's what I do. And that looks like working with one-on-ones, working with teams. I love working with teams. It's a lot of fun. I also lead groups. So I have a GIST productivity training group that I run, or a class that I run that leads to a community. But how I got to coaching, actually, I came from coaching from Microsoft through real estate and into coaching. It's like, is that a hard left? I don't know what that is. So I was at Microsoft. I was an operations manager in the online sales division at MSN. And so that was online advertising, and that was a really cool way to kind of grow up in the professional world. But in my heart, advertising wasn't the thing. It wasn't like, for as hard as I was working and for as much as I was doing it, like, this isn't the thing. And so at the time, I was married to a mortgage broker, and I loved real estate. And so I thought, what am I going to do? And so I'm like, fine, I'll just do that, right? Like, I didn't even think about, like, I'll do that. I'll just do that. I like looking at houses, as if Tammy's like, yeah, that's all it takes, right?
That's the fun part.
Yeah, like, oh, I can be a real estate agent. I like looking at houses. Yeah, right. But I did. I went into real estate, and I actually did well. But within the first year, I was just like, oh, no, this isn't the thing. But through real estate, I got exposed to coaching. So I was in Buffini and Company coaching. I was aware of all the different coaching programs, got exposed to the world of self-help, personal growth, all these books, right? You guys have a great book club you got running. And through that, I remember thinking, I just want to read like self-help books and teach them to people. And my husband at the time was like, that's not a thing. I was like, oh, okay, And then slowly I was like, oh, wait, this coaching thing. And it's not just for real estate agents. It could be for anybody. And so I went and started investigating training opportunities and got certified as a life coach, and then got certified as a Myers-Briggs practitioner, which is a personality assessment. And that was, what year are we in? I have no idea what year we're in.
I know.
So it was 12 years ago. That was 12 years ago. Yeah, I keep forgetting last year. I'm like, I go straight from 2019 to 2021, but yeah.
Well, and that's how we met, was in a small group through the coaching company when you were in real estate.
Yep.
And you were the leader
We were
of
all
the
in
small.
Buffini Company.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you were the leader first,
No,
weren't you?
you were the
Oh,
leader, and then I was the second leader, or your assistant, or whatever. And it was like, oh, this is her calling. We knew. I knew
It was so cool. Yeah, getting to lead the small group, and then we were in a business networking group together and met other people that way. And it's really interesting. From that first year in business as a coach, I have 3 clients who've been with me ever since then. And at first I was like, I don't want to be a crutch to anybody. I should be able to like love them and leave them, get people to their next thing. And then you realize when you get people to that peak that they're climbing, they start to see other peaks that they want to climb. And so that's how I've been able to have these really like long-term clients, my long-term one-on-one clients that are really awesome to have.
Well, life is always growing and changing, and we're experimenting with things, which we talk about a lot together, is that you want to try something new, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's just an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
and to find out. And so you were just experimenting with real estate.
I was. Yeah, but that's the only way you know. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is something that I encounter a lot with people. It could be a brand new client. It could be a long-term client. It doesn't matter who it is. They were like, oh, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about it. And they've gone through every scenario in their head, right? And it's like, okay, great. Yeah, none of those are reality. Like,
Right.
we don't know how any of these routes will actually go unless you take just one step. Like, can we identify your next best step? Take it. And it's not a big step. They're just little steps, and see how that goes. And if it doesn't feel good, we pivot and turn and take a step in a different direction. Or if it does feel good, then we take the next step and the next step, right? And so I think people can do a lot of work inside of their heads, and really smart people with lots of experience, but nothing compares to actually taking real steps in the real world. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And those are all experiments.
Yes, they're all experiments. So talking about, the real estate side of coaching, do you have a best practice that you recommend to people, or is it always different?
Well, what I always say, it's funny because I get clients who will say, just tell me what to do, especially new clients. New clients will be like, just tell me what to do. I'm like, oh, that's cute. You think that I know what to do in your business. This is your business,
We need a
Right.
magic bullet.
Yeah, like this.
Please.
Crystal ball.
That's why, I watch a lot of real estate agents, mortgage brokers, invest in a lot of technology, right? And they're doing all these things, investing all this technology, and they're not thinking about necessarily how they want to run their business. And they know that some of that already because they're doing it kind of inherently, but they've never thought about, what do I want my client experience to be? Not what does like Gary Keller say it should be, or Brian Buffini say it should be, but what do I want my client experience to be? How do I capture that and make sure I have systems set up to support me in doing that, or support my team in doing that? And so I would say the thing you got to do, which is hard, is to say, like, have clarity around how is it that I want to treat my people, and then make sure you have the systems set up to do that. And systems don't have to be hard, right? Systems can just be a checklist, right? Systems can just be like your little morning routine. It doesn't matter your closing checklist. It doesn't matter what it is, but how can you set up systems to support you in delivering the service you really, truly in your heart want to deliver to your people?
Well, that's what I love about you and your coaching, is that you're not a one-stop or one system fits all,
Right.
and I know that from experience because I am a paper person.
You are a paper person.
And you've helped a lot with that. But I think that's really important, and how you talked about, what is your client experience that you want. And so it's basically knowing your core values.
Yeah. Being able to know, what do you believe in and how can I live that through my business? And it sounds really simple to say, and it is simple to say. It's not necessarily easy to capture and document. And that's where, coaches come into play a lot, is we are listening and we are watching and we're going, well, it seems like this. And then you go, oh my God, that's right. Like, okay, so how do we do this consistently, right? You're saying this is what you believe. Are you living this? And if not, is this really what you believe, right? And if so, then let's get back on track and let's support you in doing things the way you believe you want to be doing them. Yeah.
Do you have like certain questions? Like, let's say I'm like, I don't know, I'm new in the business and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, how to do this. Tell me what to do, kind of thing. Do you have certain questions that you start to ask people so that they can find their way?
In some ways. So there's definitely lots of questions that I ask. At the beginning, if somebody's brand new to real estate, I say, go ahead and listen to what the experts have to say, the gurus out there, the coaching, the real estate coaching gurus out there. They have models, they have ideas that have worked for lots of people. Go ahead and take some of that and start trying it, run experiments, so you can find out what works for you and what doesn't. For some people, they're just like, they would rather die than cold call, but it turns out they love door knocking. Like, they like being outside, they like exploring neighborhoods, and I like door knocking would be like my worst nightmare, right? But for them, they might try that, or they might realize, oh my God, I love doing open houses because I love this feeling of hosting, right? I hated open houses. I hated like, it was sheer dread for me to set up. And it was when it wasn't my listing, right? I was doing open houses, you know, because I was newer. I was doing open houses for other agents, right? Don't get me wrong, I did it well, but I hated it, right?
Right.
And so at first, if you're new in the industry, try all the stuff that they tell you to try. Try it, though. You don't get to decide without trying. Like, you don't get to decide that you're not good at open houses, you don't like them unless you try them. I tried them over and over again and finally accepted, like, this is actually not my jam. Like, I'm not good at this. And I don't need to get good at this. I can do other things instead. So that's the first thing I would say for like somebody new to the industry. Is there are tried and true things? You know, there's a list of 10 things that your broker could tell you what to do. Just try them for a few weeks, each of them, and see how it goes. And then when you start to get, you know, your feet under you and you know what you kind of know what direction you're heading in terms of how you're going to do lead generation and follow up and things like that, it becomes, okay, now values start to come into play, right? In terms of what do I believe? What does that look like? And those questions are kind of surprising because usually what I say is, and I'll watch my language here, but what's the kind of stuff that really ticks you off? What's the stuff that makes you crazy? And this actually is okay if we call out Law of Attraction now. Yes. So I think you guys are going to have this as your book club book, but like, oh, preview, right? Yeah. Law of Attraction by Michael Logier has this really cool exercise in it called clarity through contrast. So contrast is what you don't want. And so if you think about all the stuff as a person that's received service, or maybe you've worked with a real estate agent or a mortgage broker or an insurance person, like a salesperson in the past, and you think of like, oh, I hate this. I hate this kind of behavior. Like, I want you to be like a 12-year-old brat and just write out all of these things that make you crazy about service and sales and all, you know, and follow up and all that kind of stuff. And so that tells you basically your values violations. That tells you the stuff that really upsets you. And so that's on one side of a page. And on the other side of the page, once you're done with that, like exhaust yourself with that, you go over to the other side of the page and you say, okay, so what do I want? Right? So if I don't like, you know, the lack of communication, what do I want? Well, I believe in excellent proactive communication, right? And so you start changing everything from what you don't want to what you do want, and make sure you phrase it positively over here on this side of the sheet, right? And so then you get clarity about your values and you start to see patterns over and over again. And suddenly maybe communication becomes a core value. And now you can center yourself around, like, this is what I believe in is excellent proactive communication. And so I'm going to, like you do, update my clients and the agents on all sides of the deal, you know, every Tuesday and Wednesday on, you know, what is going on in the transaction. Like, that is proactive, excellent communication. And I'm going to like really lean on that and make sure everybody knows that that's what I do. So that way nothing, you know, there's rarely a surprise in the transaction, right? And so you can find that out, though, by saying, you know, here's what I don't want, here's what I can't stand, you know, here's what I hate.
Right, yeah. Right. So how important, and I know the answer on this one.
Oh, okay. Ooh, you're like softball, you're like T-ball, teeing it up for me, right?
How important is tracking? Because I know that is a thing for a lot of people.
Oh, Tammy, tell me more about that. That was a big sigh.
It can be tough. Yeah, I mean, it's like you have the best of intentions, and then it's like, well, this comes up, and then this, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it. And that's actually what you were saying is, you know, you have the best of intentions, but you've got to follow through.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. It is hard to track. I think the key is, and I fall victim to this too, is when it comes to tracking, is I can want to track all the things, you know, and so then nothing gets tracked because it's all the things, and that's too much to manage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the way I always like to think about it comes from the 4 Disciplines of Execution. I'm totally forgetting the author, but the 4 Disciplines of Execution, just look it up. You'll find it on Amazon. But what they talk about is leading and lagging indicators. And so think about what are the core leading indicators in terms of the actions you take that are within your control to generate the results you want to generate, right? So what's important is that you take within your control, right? It can't be stuff that other people are doing for you or that you have no control over. You have control over whether or not you pick up the phone. You have control over whether or not you send out a regular, newsletter or something like that. You have control over whether or not you do pop-bys. You have control whether or not you go and do your door knocking plan, right? You have control whether or not you do all the farming activities that are set up in your farming plan, right? So those are all leading indicators or leading activities, the things that you can do to create the results, fingers crossed, that you want, right? And so if you are fulfilling all of your leading indicators, right, then it's, okay, what are the lagging indicators? So in real estate, right, the lagging indicators are like somebody signed like a buyer's agency agreement or a listing agreement, right? That's a lagging indicator. That's a result that you're wanting to get. It's an interim result, like it's not the final result, because what's the final result, Tammy? Closing. Woo! Yeah. Right? So but it's still like, it shows a result, right? That was not within your control, right? Somebody else made a decision on whether or not they were going to sign that document. You did everything you could to get them there, booking the appointment, right? Before you even get there, right? Like before the listing agreement, like getting that appointment booked, that's a lagging indicator. Actually having a closing is a huge lagging indicator, right? It's like, woo, that's what we want. And then, if you want to be tracking like the actual dollars, that kind of thing too. So, tracking is really important. The thing you want to focus on, though, is the leading indicators. You want to know what the lagging indicators are. You want to see those come through. But if you're not doing those leading indicators, you're not going to get the lagging indicators you're hoping for. So do the actions, do the activities that lead to the results that you want.
Without chasing all the squirrels.
Oh, my gosh.
And
that's the hard thing is, you have all these things you should be doing, but squirrels get in the way. And unfortunately, and I know I do this, it's like, well, I know I should be doing these, but there was this going on. And then I make excuses for why I'm not following through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
Me too.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's human. We all do it.
Yeah.
It's a matter of looking at why, though. Like, okay, why am I procrastinating this?
What's
going on?
And usually because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
When discomfort comes in, or I know that I don't have all the answers, or if it's going to be a little difficult, or, it's like, procrastination sets in.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I do have to say, though, that was a game changer for me working with you, because, struggling, to get a consistent business early on, and then, feeling like, oh, nothing's happening, and focusing on what you can control. And then all of a sudden,
results came.
Yeah, results came. And they were consistent.
They were consistent.
And they are
growth
consistent.
Every time. Yeah.
I know. So that's good. So
that was the shift. That was the big shift. But it also took time to figure out the best tracking for you. So Lisa's competitive. Can I say that?
Yes,
Are you
can.
Me saying that?
You can say
Lisa
that.
is competitive, but with yourself. Like you give her like I guess it was like kind of like a score to try to achieve. Mm-hmm. That's going to do it for her, but not everybody is like that. So we tried a number of different formats of scorecards that we just created between the two of us until we found the one that worked for her. And it's totally paper. It's just paper.
Yep.
It's not hard. It's not in some big old CRM system and all fancy with all this reporting. It gives you what you need to see. It's called the player's scorecard, where you can see where you're at in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you
almost
can know
like a
your
little star chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a way.
Well, in a way,
I mean, that's what I would need. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm hitting these indicators. Plus, I also need somebody that I'm accountable to.
So, that's one thing is that, when you talked about discomfort and, putting it off, the things that I didn't want to do, I gave myself a higher point value. So I had a certain amount of points. So like checking in was on transaction, that's a 1 because that's a non-negotiable. But to make a semi-cold call or, something like that, I gave myself more points because I'm stepping out of my game.
Yeah, cold calls. Not me.
I know.
That's not my jam.
Or even just a check-in, right?
Yeah.
When you have like the check-in, you don't want to sound like an idiot. You're just like, hey, how's it going? I'm just checking in. But that is like doing those check-ins lead to business, so they know that you're there for them. It's like that reminder,
Right.
And those are harder for both of us, for Lisa and I both, like those are harder for us to do. And so it's like, we want to get some credit for that.
Right.
Good big old pats on the back.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So another thing with real estate, a lot of people maybe either are starting a team or have a team.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned you worked with a lot of teams.
Yes.
So do you see like a common issue or a common thing that people are struggling with teams?
Yes. It's, I've realized there's so much in our personal lives that matches up with business, right? So it's like one thing is don't have a team if you don't want to be a leader. So it's one thing to have a team because you want to grow your business, but your number one requirement for having a team should be that you want to be a leader of people and you want to help them grow. And because that's going to be the real job. It's just like, you have to know that if you're going to real estate, you need to be able to do lead generation of some sort, your own way, but you need to do it, right? So don't build a team unless you want to be a leader. And when I think about leadership, it's a lot like parenting. And I'm not even a parent, but I have 2 nieces that I'm as close to a parent to as I could be. And it is a lot about expectation setting and being clear and consistent communicate, like constantly saying the same things over and over again, and really just caring for these people like you would care for your children, like wanting what's best for them, wanting to help them grow. So that's the first part. The other part is parenting is also like a relationship, like marriage, like a romantic relationship where, have you ever had that feeling of like, well, they should just know what I want? Especially by now, like by now they should know. We've been together this long. They should know what I want. I shouldn't have to ask, right? I shouldn't have to ask. I shouldn't have to say it. It's like, yeah, you do. You have to ask. You have to say it. Stop being a baby. Just do it, right? And so that's what happens a lot for my, small business owners. They've been doing it all on their own, and they are smart enough to know they need a team and they want to be a leader, right? But they don't know how to say what they want to the people. They're just like, isn't that common sense? It's like, no, like what makes you crazy isn't what makes other people crazy. So your values might be a little different, or how you express them might be different. So you need to be able to say what you want and what you expect. And that needs to be crystal clear. It's not fair to ask somebody to come play a game with you and then not give them the rules. Could you imagine saying like, hey, come play Monopoly, and be like, oh, you'll figure it out. You should know this by now, right? They haven't been doing what you've been doing for 15 years or 5 years or 3 years. Like they're behind, they're behind you on all of this. So you are the leader. You need to be able to articulate and say very clearly what you want. And again, that's often where coaching comes into play, is like people complain to me. I'm like, oh, so did you tell them that? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, then bad on you. So let's figure out how to have that conversation.
Right.
Let's figure out how to say what you need to say.
Right. Do you find that people starting teams have issues, maybe not so much with that communication, but letting go and not being so controlled?
Oh, no, never. No. Me too. Yeah.
It's like I'm the only one that can do it, and no one else can do it.
Or do it right.
Yeah. And that's the scary part. Like the best thing you can do as a leader is hire somebody who you know is going to do it better than you. Mm-hmm. And that is scary, because you're like, well, then am I really needed? You're like, yeah, of course you're needed. You're doing the lead gen part of it. Like your job is going to be to bring in the more business, but you want somebody that is even more passionate about communication than you are, if that's your core value, right? You want somebody that can do a listing presentation with their eyes closed even better than you. You want somebody that can help a buyer walk through an inspection and not freak out better than you ever could, right? So it's like all of those things. You want people who are better than you. And so that does make it hard to let go. But usually it's because they're not thinking that way. They're still getting somebody who's just, a little more subpar or doesn't have the potential to grow into that. So then they are afraid to let it go because they kind of know they can't do it. It's like a little self-sabotage thing that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I love that idea, because then I'm not having to check in all the time. I don't like to parent adults.
Yeah.
I've parented 4 kids. Yes. I'm done. Yeah. So to have somebody on my team that I'm not constantly having to call and go, hey, have ya? Hey, have ya? Because that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of person I want on my team. Mm-hmm. I'm totally in line with that.
I know. Well, and then also have the systems to support them in knowing exactly what you expect, because that's the harder thing too.
Exactly.
Because there's things that we've all done in our careers and our businesses where we're like, yeah, we know exactly how to do this, but we haven't documented it anywhere. And so so now we need to like train up that person, and either they can create the documentation for you as you train them, or you create it for them as you go. But, just make sure it's clear what the expectations are, but that they have the capacity and the growth to be able to grow into that better than you ever were. Right. Like, that's the key.
And that was the one thing what we worked with a lot, too, is that, I felt like I had to have control over everything. And I enjoyed the paperwork part, and I enjoyed the meeting part. And then I realized as I got an assistant, I'm like, oh, she does it the paperwork and the organization much better than I do. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to have that person that is better than
and then you can learn from them too. I think that's
yeah.
When you can actually let go and learn from them, I think then you learn as a person as well so much about yourself. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, it's a growth experience all the way around. But you have to be willing to kind of get to that point in your life, which is something in my 20s ever could have done because I knew everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I still do sometimes.
Well, that too. My husband will tell you that about me. And so will my kids.
Well, exactly. Well, and I think the other thing too is then you get to spend more time on the things that you do enjoy.
Exactly.
So we go back to the list.
Yeah, you bring it back down. All of a sudden, you're 20%, like, of the business, you're focused on this 20% that you love.
Yeah.
Like, you get to just line up meeting after meeting and have these amazing meetings, and you're like, here we go. And somebody else is, like, bringing it home. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, that's so cool.
Exactly.
Well, I'm also super excited
Okay.
because we are going to have you
Oh, yeah.
live.
What are you excited about?
You know me. On August 5th with Women's Council. And it's going to be, it's time for a breakthrough is the subject.
Yeah.
So can you give us all a little teaser on what it's all about?
Sure. Yeah, so it's I think everybody is feeling that timeliness of, you know, hopefully the pandemic getting back under control. Who knows? I won't go into that, but people wear masks, you know, as still probably. But there's been a lot of time to think, right? There's been a lot of time to think about things. There's been a lot of time to kind of feel what's working and what's not working. I've noticed a lot of people kind of dreaming a little bit bigger. They're like, wait, maybe this isn't the thing, right? Life's short. Like, what do I really want to do? Like, how do I really want to do my business? Or do I even want to do this anymore? Like, all these different things. And there are, you know, big dreams can be really exciting, but it takes breakthroughs and action to make things happen. And so that's what we're going to be focused on. We're going to be focused on looking at where your breakthrough is needed the most. Like, what is most getting in your way? What is the ceiling that you need to intentionally actually break through and leave behind? And so we'll look at it from the ground level of projects and actions. Maybe it needs to happen there. We'll look at it at the next level of like goals and visions, or maybe it's purpose and values, right? Like, who knows where it's at, but I'm going to help talk about, or I'm going to talk about all of those things and help you identify where your breakthrough needs to happen and what that next action is to actually make the breakthrough happen. Because anybody who knows anything about me knows that I'm all about next actions. Like, again, like experiments. We got to run experiments. We got to take action. We got to see what happens. And so it'll be a very action-oriented, very interactive. I like interactive Zooms. It's no fun otherwise. Mm-hmm. So I will be encouraging, like, chat with me, you know, get in the chat with me. I'll ask you to unmute sometimes so that we can have some conversations and figure out where it is you are going to break through and what that's going to look like.
That's awesome.
We are so excited.
I know.
I'm
and I
excited.
know you are all about having forms and things like that. Are there going to be some that are...
Of course there's going to be a handout.
A
Of
handout.
course. Like,
Yay! So
I cannot have a handout.
Exactly. So it's really important then that people sign up in advance.
Yes.
And that so we make sure that we get everything out
You're
to
so
them.
good, Lisa. Look at you. You're like, come on, everybody. Get
I
in
know.
here.
Yeah.
Get
Come on,
going.
let's get signed up because I know how valuable it is. And one of the quotes that she always does at the end when she talks about action, when we're done with our coaching, she goes, if you had nothing else to do, Lisa, today, what would be the one thing that you would do to move forward? And I'm like, oh, I hate you right now. But I love you.
It's like, I gotta think.
I know. Well, and then I do the creepy version of, like, people can't come up with it because oftentimes they'll say something that's not actually action, right? Not you, other people.
Yeah.
Other people.
Other people.
Then I say, okay, if you had nothing else to do today, but to move this thing forward, what would I walk in and see you doing? Because then they have to think of something that somebody else could witness. It's creepy to think of me just walking in on them at any moment to see what they're doing, but it's all right. It works. It works.
It works.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, but it does. It really helps move forward. So we, like I said, are super excited about having you and learning and growing and so appreciate you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
No,
And I
make
do
us
have
think.
to say, this is a book that you recommended to me, and it is going to be a law of attraction and is our next book club. So people be sure to sign up and let me know. I have 9 books left.
And who's hosting the next book club?
That's right. That's me.
Yay! Hey, guess what, Lisa? I have a handout that I could give you for the crew. So let me know if you want it. Email me, and
Okay.
I will send it to you because I have a
Oh,
Clarity Through Contrast handout that you all can use at the book club.
Oh,
I
awesome.
keep loving this. More handouts.
I
Just
know.
write down because I'm a paper person too.
Right?
I know.
This is why I'm like, I want to encourage note taking. So here's the thing to take notes
Because it
on.
makes me think.
Yes,
I
it
know.
does. It
Yeah,
does.
it is. In fact, it's funny is I usually have a pen and I'm taking notes during these live events.
No.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. And then do we have another happy hour coming up, or have we set the date
We
yet?
have not set the date yet, but yes, we will have one because it's great. It's like now we have the happy hours. Those are being very successful. People are enjoying getting together and just networking, seeing each other, and you know, just in general, getting out.
Yeah.
Reconnecting.
Reconnecting. That's definitely been kind of an issue. I think people are kind of like coming out and going, "Oh my gosh, there's people out here."
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I'm going to step out of my house. Okay.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, there's been a
So-
couple times I've been in a crowd and I've been a little, oh my gosh, there's people, you know, a lot of people here.
Yeah, we're not used to it.
Which is funny because for me, I was like, "Okay, get me out of my house.
Yeah.
I'm done." It's like,
I know.
world, I am here.
I am here.
Let me out. Let me out.
Let me out. Let me out. So perfect. Well, thank you again, Elise. I'm so honored that you were here today, and always learning and always growing with you. And like I said, looking forward to
Yes.
having our event next month and
Thank you.
helping others grow.
Thank you for having me. It's extra special, I have to say. This is my first, I think this is my first professional outing. Yeah, to get to do it with you is awesome.
Oh.
And Tammy, to
We're s-
reconnect with you.
I know. We're so double honored that this is your
Yeah.
first outing.
Yeah.
I know. Awesome. Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you
we
so
can't
much.
wait.
Yay. Me either. Thank you.
Thanks.